Right. Good evening everyone, it's 7 o'clock, so we make a start. Can I welcome you all to the Brent Knoll Parish Council, what is our February provisional meeting. If we can start with the public questions or comments. David, did you want to...
Yeah, I'll happily just make a comment.
Yeah.
As I understand it, we're all here, but you're here particularly to look at the agreement that has been drawn up recently between the Shop Management Committee and the PC itself. As you know, it's 4 years ago now that the original shop in the village closed, and a great deal of that went into establishing the community shop, which is now housed in the court cabin outside. And then more effort was put into establishing where and how we could set up a permanent site and building for the shop, and that has really been worked on, and we are now talking about the shop just outside here, replacing the toilet block, and the toilet block itself will be replaced as well. Now that has required a huge amount of effort to find the wherewithal to do it, to get the public agreement, and to get the legal documents all sorted out and so on. And there's been a lot of scrutiny from the public and from us and from you, which is just as it should be. And I think we are now agreed in principle to go ahead and get established. There's been a lot of hold-ups, and particularly the fact that there's an electric cable running under the toilet. Otherwise I think we might have been underway already, but we're not. But we are here, but we are very tight for time now in order to be able to take advantage of the loan that we've been promised, and to get the builders on board and actually working. So we have to get underway. We have been getting leases drawn up by the solicitors, but these are highly complicated, and there just is not time to establish precisely what's in these to go ahead, and that will take time. So today, I think it was you, Bob, and Owen put out this document, really a sort of a letter of intent for us to both sign, so that we can go ahead knowing that we are actually committed to carrying this all through, and hopefully providing a very successful shop for the village. And it is the only shop in the village, as you well know, and it will make a lot of difference to the village if we did not have one. So I think we should hopefully go ahead and get sorted tonight. Thank you
very much. I don't think anyone else has asked to speak.
Don't think so. Anybody
No one else
else has changed their mind in the interim? No?
Okay, thank you very much. If we move then to the agenda itself for tonight, item 1 is apologies for absence. Owen, do we have
So
any?
we've had apologies from AD and John. Two apologies this evening. Happy to, sir.
Are members happy that we accept those apologies? All in favour? Yeah, that's carried. Thank you. Item 2 is declarations of interests and dispensations. If I can start off with my normal declaration of obviously it's membership of the Somerset Council, if anything comes up relating to council business, and also the dispensation which I have in relation to my shareholding on the shop. Any other declarations? Colin?
Shop, please.
Thank you. No. Jane?
Shop.
Okay, no, that's it. Thank you. Okay, so we move on to the next item, which is the shop building project. Just to give an update, you'll remember at the last meeting we agreed on the tenderer that we were looking at going ahead with, subject to a number of items having to be resolved. So just to give you sort of the update on where we are with those various issues. In terms of the contractor, we have now had back an independent financial check on the business. That has come back saying it is fine. Part of that check was them carrying out a sort of experience style check as well as going through the accounts of the business, and that's come back clear. We have received positive references in terms of work that has been carried out by him as a builder. In terms of the Section 14 issues that we were having discussions with the shop, as you've just heard from David Yates, those are carried on, and we have had agreement in terms of what's part of the Section 14 items which we went through, you remember, at the last meeting. We have also are dealing with the agreement to enter into a lease tonight as part of our agenda. Owen has now had confirmation from the Department of Housing and Levelling Up that we have the reference number that we require to apply for our loan for 160,000, and has also been given an application, I think it's described as an application form to go to the PWLB.
What the Department of Levelling Up have done is as you know, we applied back in 2022 first of all for the loan, and since that time we've had 4 extensions. They normally only allow 2 anyway. We've had 4 already. This time they did ask for more information. They wanted more budgetary information from the council to make sure that our finances were still at the same level that they were when we first applied. And of course they are. So we had to provide them some more information. They've come back to us and said they will approve the loan application, providing we get on with it, basically. And not try to postpone any longer. So we've got permission now to go to the PWLB and make a formal application for a drawdown of the funds in whatever way we should do. And that's something we'll talk about.
Absolutely, that's on the agenda. We've also had information come through today confirming from National Grid that they will be starting on site at the beginning of April. And that they are looking that their works will take approximately a week.
About a week, they said. Maybe a day or so longer, but it's not likely to be much longer than that. Maybe shorter, I reckon. Maybe 3 or 4 days. So there will be a public walkway through to the shop for those who worry about access to the shop while they cut the car park off. So there will be access to the shop, and there will be access to the green during that time.
At the last meeting, again, we discussed the sort of VAT position, and just again to reaffirm the fact that we've had the advice from the VAT specialists that the VAT is reclaimable by the parish council on our element of the build, and the VAT would be reclaimable by the shop on the Section 14 elements that would be invoiced directly to them, so that is the best way to deal with the VAT. And also we have had some further information back from our architect, who has been looking at the various PC sums, the provisional sums for elements of the build. He has come. He wanted to double check. He said initially for his own peace of mind, to some extent, that in the time that we've been waiting for this to come through, the prices haven't gone up dramatically. So far, on all the PC sums that he has looked at, and he's now looked at all the PC sums, they have all come in at or below the level at which he had put in the budget. So on that front, he is happy that we are in a solid position to go ahead, and there is a contingency built into the fees. So those are the updates as to what has moved since our last meeting, which then brings us to the item 1 on section 4, which is the lease contract agreement for the toilet and shop project, and the resolution to approve and sign the documentation subject to availability.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask one question, please?
Yeah.
And just to go back, we have in our reserves a total of 61,000, of which we're taking out of those reserves 36, which is the silver funding, and the PWLB reserve build amount. What is being held in reserves elsewhere? Because the other reserves are all, if you like, demarked and reserved. What other reserves are we holding, if you like, for any emergencies, a rainy day, which we're having, or having many of them at the moment? What are we holding on top of those?
So in terms of the general reserve, we have a 14,000 reserve that is is as a general reserve that we can call on. Obviously, as you mentioned, there are allocated reserves, things like play equipment, which is obviously set aside in our reserves currently. But as a general reserve, we would have £14,000.
And that covers, 3-4 months? It's obviously not detailed in the reserves here. I just want to check
Yeah.
that we do have reserves.
Yeah.
Well,
Where are those in our reserve
Well, the
calculation?
operational reserve, which is a bit we pay our bills from, is the £14,000, and of course we are coming up now to the end of the financial year, which means that we shall know exactly where we are at the end of March. But at the moment, it looks as though we're on target to have the funds that we said we would have when we set the precept back in November, which is about £14,500.
Okay, that is on top of the
That's on top of the.
61 that
That's
we've
on top
got.
of that. Yeah.
Okay.
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 So,
And now
sorry,
the-
Owen, where does that sit in the 24 accounts? Where does that sit in the 24 accounts?
In
That
23 accounts.
Well, if you're saying we're going to have 14 grand this year as well, where would that sit in the reserve?
Well, it would be
Because
as
we're saying on our reserve forecast in April 1st, 2024, we got 61k.
yes.
We're about to take 36, 37 out of it. We're about to take 48 out of it, which leaves us with 13k on the budgeted reserve on the document we sent out, we agreed, which puts us into less than 3 months holding in our funds.
No. If I can just cut in, Andy,
Yeah.
the ones you're looking at is the reserves, which are the fixed reserves, so we put them into a pot and said those are for a purpose.
Right.
If you go back on your documentation that had for the preset, the previous page shows you where we were doing the calculations. There is it's headed opening cash reserves and then forecast income. Column at the letter E halfway down is the recommended general reserves, which we set aside, which was £14,626.72. So that is in addition to what you were listing, which was the fixed reserves, which are the ones that are put in a pot already for a particular item. In terms of that, on top of that, the ones that you've got listed are the five. So I think your list probably shows 5,000 for the play reserve.
Yeah.
In this year's budget, we put another 2,500 in, which will go into that reserve next year. Equally, there are top-up sums going into the clerk's gratuity and the election fund, which we've budgeted in this year's precept, so that there is funding going into those reserves in addition to the 14,000 general reserve. And obviously, within our budget, we set aside the figure. I think it was 7,000. Yes. So we put a 7,000 figure in for what we call the emergency budget, which was to help cover the issues relating to potentially what comes from Somerset now. So that's an extra sum of money that we wouldn't normally have as well.
Yeah. So we put 7k into the budget.
Yeah.
Got that. You're saying we've got 7 in reserve elsewhere in the formula in here, so that gives us 14k.
No, sorry. There's the 7 that's been put into the budget, and then there's 14 in as reserve as well. So if you add those two together, you're looking at potentially 21.
Okay.
Can I just ask in plain English, that 21,000, can we potentially use that then for emergencies like the flooding and any other things that are going on in the village at the moment? Can we actually use that money?
So I mean, within our budget, we have 7 that is in there specifically for being spent. We have this 14,600, which is the general reserve, which is there to be the rainy day fund. So if an issue cropped up that we had to deal with, we could draw it from those funds. The subsequent year, we would be looking then to top that sum back up so that we keep a reserve that is ready in case there's another emergency that crops up.
Yeah. I just think that, going back to what Colin initially said, I think that where we have got like the rainy day at the moment, we've got some serious flooding issues which are going to have to be addressed, I think. And I think that what I'd like to know is, can we use those funds, those reserves, we can use them then for these flooding projects or other things?
Yeah, I mean,
We can
ultimately
use that,
reserves
yeah.
are there to be called on if if we needed to.
It's just that when we raised the issue of putting some of that general fund into the play park fund,
Yeah.
we got told we don't want to touch any of the 6 months. But we seem to be quite happy to do that for a project for the shop. So are we agreeing in principle that we are prepared to work under the 6 month barrier? Because the shop, the play park is now, we've got a couple of pieces in there that need replacing. We've been talking about it for a number of years, and we need, and putting £2,000 or £1,000 away a year means we're going to be at this for 30 years. And we talked about going outside the business to raise the funds, but we have the funds because we're prepared to use it on other projects, but we're not prepared to use it on emergency projects. And the play park is fast becoming an emergency. So in principle, are we saying that the 21,000 that we have in reserve at the end of agreeing the project today, we can utilise for other facilities that we deem as emergency? Or are we saying that 6 months is going to halt?
I mean, ultimately, that will be a decision for members to make. The danger is if you spend it and you then have another emergency,